Switch 2 reportedly has magnetic Joy-Cons and might not support existing ones. I'm pulling from
I'm
Tom
shocked.
Isaac at Video Games Chronicle. New details about Nintendo's Switch successor have reportedly surfaced. Long-running Spanish video game website Vandal claims to have received information about the console from sources at peripherals manufacturers. According to the site, Switch 2's Joy-Con controllers will attach to the console magnetically. As current Joy-Cons connect to Switch using a rail system, it's unclear if they'll be forwards compatible with the new console. The existing Nintendo Switch Pro controller will work with Switch 2, it is claimed. It's worth noting that prior to Switch OLED's reveal in 2021, Vandal accurately reported on some of the console's features, such as the inclusion of a new stand and Ethernet port. I got more details from Stealth, who is referencing Stealth. He references the Vandal article where they mention the Switch 2 is seemingly reportedly larger than the Switch. Joy-Cons are magnetic. Switch Pro controller is supported, and accessory manufacturers have touched the new system but not actually looked at it.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
They touched it.
It's like the scene in Dune 1.
Blindfolded?
Fucking Reggie Fils-Aimé is sitting across from him with a needle, and it's like, put your hand in the box, and they just fucking peel out the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. Cool.
Very cool. Like, did you expect your Joy-Cons to carry? And
Absolutely
I know,
not.
grain of salt, yada, yada, yada. You didn't, no, right?
I'm surprised even about the idea of the Pro controller working. I think even that, I'm like, we'll see when we get there. Because
Nintendo's usually pretty good about that shit, right?
I mean, in certain contexts, sure. Like the Wii to Wii U jump, you could still use your Wiimotes, right? Like that was still a thing that carried over. But Nintendo's just weird, right?
True.
Like I feel like Nintendo likes their bespoke, hey, we're doing something here. We're doing something experimental or new or different or fresh. And I don't think they mind too much about leaving the past behind in order to pursue something new. And so if Nintendo were to come through and be like, hey, like, yeah, we're completely redoing the controller, new buttons, like new way to play games, all this shit. It for me, it's like the same thing of jumping from PSVR 1 to PSVR 2, where it is, okay, well, we can't really make these things backwards compatible because there's a new form of tracking, and like to do that, you have to like go develop by developer and like, figure out a bunch of shit. I think Nintendo thinks in a similar way of, yeah, like if in pursuing what's next for Nintendo, we have to leave back the features of the Switch 1, we'll fucking do it. Like I think
agree.
that's where they're at.
I understand. I think this is all good news because this is not a WND. You can throw them up in the chat, Twitch folks, YouTube folks, right? This isn't a weird Nintendo decision. This points to them not reinventing the wheel, not going like, forget what you know about controlling games. It's something like the Wiimote. It is virtual reality, it is gesture tracking. If it's supporting the Pro controller, I'm like, okay, cool. It sounds like it's going to be, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's improve on what the Switch was and stick with what works. Let the novelty of the Switch be the ability that it's a handheld and it is a console, right? Rather than it be, here's this fucking weird ass GameCube controller.
My thing with it is, there was a conversation me and Tim were having a little bit yesterday of the HD rumble and the features that we have in the current Pro controller.
Yeah.
I think for a Switch 2, you find big ways to improve on it, right? Like, I like the Pro controller. I don't necessarily love the Pro controller. I think
you gotta love that battery.
The battery is
We
great.
can't sit here and shit on the PlayStation controller all the time and its battery and not be like, God damn, that Pro controller, I charged it once when I got it. Yeah, I've never charged it again.
I'm pretty sure I've not picked up my Pro controller in months at this point. I'm sure it's still charged. Like, I can still pick up and play. But yeah, there are things like, we jump forward to 2024 that we're in, right? Since 2017 of the Pro controller coming out.
Outrageous.
And crazy when you think about it. 7 years?
Yeah.
Insane. But we have things like the Xbox Series X controller, right? Which like improves on form factor, feels so good to hold, feels so good to control with. You have the PlayStation 5 DualSense, which has the haptics, has the adaptive triggers, have all these features, right? I don't think Nintendo's going to go that route of adding in adaptive triggers. That doesn't strike me as a thing that the Nintendo stuff needs, but I think haptics would be a big step forward, right? We have the HD Rumble. This is the thing I was kind of going back and forth with Tim yesterday about, is like, I love when I booted up Returnal and I can feel like every single raindrop in the controller.
Yeah.
I don't, and maybe this is you're wrong, maybe the chat, you can argue against this if you feel like I'm wrong. But like, I feel like I don't get that level of detail out of my Nintendo Switch Pro controller. And I think for a Switch 2, I would love to see them push that further. I think there are big leaps that we can make.
But the question there I would ask is like, is that because it can't do it or because developers aren't using it?
I mean, I don't think it's because it can't do it.
Because I remember when 1-2 Switch originally came around, and it was like, how many ice cubes are in the glass and shit like that. Like, that did feel great.
Yeah.
Granted, it's 7 years old. I'm sure haptics, as we've seen with the DualSense, have come very far and da-da-da-da-da.
And that's the Joy-Con. Like, I think the Joy-Con has a lot of that stuff. I don't know if the Pro Controller has that stuff. And even still, like, I think even just holding the Pro Controller, there's something about it that feels a bit off to me.
Got it.
Like, it just doesn't.
What I would
That's
always,
like the one thing I would say feels more like a toy than like a piece of technology that I'm holding.
I always feel like the Pro Controller feels like a generic controller.
Yeah.
It feels like a Mad Catz thing, or it feels like I'm in a movie and they can't get any licenses, so I use this. It's not an insult to the device. I think it's got a good build. I think it feels fine. I like the face buttons on it. Shoulder buttons I could do some changes on or whatever. But like, I don't know. For me, it's just a controller that doesn't really have an identity.
Yeah, for me, it gets the job
so
done.
seldomly.
For me, it gets the job done in the way that the Joy-Cons are just so weird. And so if you're wanting to play a game on your Switch that is, I just want to play this like a traditional game. I don't have to worry about like holding it in handheld or holding two Joy-Cons in my hand. The Pro Controller is there as a regular ass controller. I guess to argue against myself a little bit.
Well, let me come off the bench because I want to argue against you on this too.
Oh, go for it.
Of why I think, again, it's a good thing for not the weird Nintendo decisions, but I think unless they're doing something radical, which I don't think they are, the Switch 2 is going to come with the nice, fancy, whatever controllers you want, right? It's going to be back to the Joy-Cons have the crazy new haptics, whatever, in them. And then, if you want to use your old Pro Controller, you have that choice. I assure you they'll be selling a new Pro Controller that has the new bells and whistles that we'll all buy because we don't want to use the old one.
And that's what I would love, right? Like, I think I agree with you in terms of I don't think it's going to be that radical. And if it is the kind of jump from Switch 1 to Switch 2 where it is, the Pro Controller can get all this shit done, I would love for them to do a Pro Controller number 2 that is almost more.
I guarantee they will.
And I would like, but I want them to like lean into, all right, this isn't just a regular like standard controller. We're going for like the Xbox Elite controller type thing. Like this is a premium.
This is Pro. Okay.
Yeah, like all right, you had the Pro Controller 1, which is you get that if you don't want to use your Joy-Cons all the time. Pro Controller 2 is, hey, maybe you have the paddle features, maybe you have like more. God, I would love it though. I would love it. Like maybe you do that.
People watching live on YouTube Super Chat, I want to know what you think and what you want for the Nintendo Switch 2, what you like about the controller, what you think about a larger Switch.
Yeah, maybe it feels heftier. Maybe it feels more like a piece of technology as opposed to
no fucking
flimsy
way. There's a Nintendo is not putting out a controller with paddles.
But like, what if they do though?
If they were, which they aren't, but if they were, it would be like 4 years into the cycle, I think, where they're like, all right, cool, now it's Switch 2, you have your Pro Controller 2, now we're introducing the Pro Controller Elite or whatever.
Yeah.
But Nintendo just doesn't operate that way, right? Like, do you need that fucking level of precision for Splatoon?
I mean, I feel like there are people out there that would be like, yeah, I want that level of precision for Splatoon.
Looking for the perfect gift to celebrate the moms in your life? Aura frames are beautiful, Wi-Fi connected digital picture frames that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. It's super easy to upload and share photos via the Aura app, and if you're giving Aura as a gift, you can even personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. How do I, Greg Miller from Kinda Funny, know so much about Aura? Because I just gave Jen one for her birthday. I used the QR code on the box to preload it with photos of her and Benny, and when she booted it up for the first time, she got to see a sweet little message from me. I like this frame so much that I am actually legitimately buying one for my mother for Mother's Day. From grandmothers to new mothers, aunts, and even friends in your life, every mom loves an Aura frame. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping for their best-selling frame. That's auraframes.com. Use code KINDAFUNNY at checkout to save. And mom, if you see this before you get your Aura frame for Mother's Day, please act surprised. But that's what happens is they eventually graduate from baby Nintendo games and go play real games on their PC, all right?
But so you mentioned like 4 years in, like that's kind of where you want to do something like that. If what we're talking about is more of a, all right, it's a jump, but it's not as much of a jump, right? It really is a Switch 2. Are we just 7 years in, right? Like, aren't we just at this point like, cool? We're doing like the small updates. Let's make a small update to the Pro Controller, or like I guess in my case, right, like a more premium update to the Pro Controller. Like I feel like you need those things, you need those features on the box to go. This is why you want to get this, as opposed to the Pro Controller.
But I
1.
feel like
what are you gonna put on the box for Pro Controller 2 then?
A fucking Nintendo logo, because that's how this works. It's that whole thing of like, I just don't like you. I understand what you're saying, and you are making sense from a fiscally responsible, educated. I am a consumer. And hey, we're trying to launch a new product and we're worried about it taking off. Nintendo is not. Nintendo knows that their fucking little logo and its little giant long pill rectangle makes money. And so, and I say this knowing full well that my Nintendo Switch 2 will not get that much playtime in the grand scheme of things. I will still buy the Pro Controller 2 at launch. Well, yeah, I want the nicer controller. You know what I mean?
But then what is a Pro Controller 2?
Well, I don't know, bigger shoulder buttons, heftier thing, even better battery life. No batteries. It charges off oxygen. I don't fucking know.
Fucking breathes.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll figure it out, and they'll make... I think Nintendo knows that you will buy things. And I mean us as video game fans or whatever. And there's always that excitement at launch. There's always this thing. And they also are playing the long game. Where, again, you say your Pro Controller 1 works. That solves the problem for so many parents and tweens and young kids who already have it, and they make it seem like, oh man, that's awesome for me. We already have all this shit, and it works in the next one. Great, mom and dad, right? Where it is like us, we're the ones who are like, well, it's not gonna fucking read your thumbprint, and Mario won't call you whatever gender you are by touching you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like whatever the fuck this thing's gonna do. You know what I mean?
God. So I want to talk about the magnetic Joy-Cons.
Okay.
Because I feel like in this whole story, right? Like that's kind of the lead of it. That's kind of the biggest detail that they're throwing out there. But for you, is that a thing that sticks out as a, oh, sweet, magnets? like, is that like a cool thing for you? Is that like an upgrade for you? Do you care about it having magnets versus rails?
What I care about is the fact that the old ones won't fit, because that speaks to Stealth's point of larger than Switch. I think we're at this point where the Switch was such a success. Everybody found, I mean, you look at Steam Deck, you look at the Portal, you look at everything, right? I think Nintendo, I hope, looks at it as like, cool, we can go bigger and it won't be weird. Like, I think if they would have launched a very big boogie board Switch at number 1 in 2017, people would have been like, what the fuck are you doing? Why would I want to carry an iPad? You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, I think one of the complaints about the Switch, at least the OG Switch, not the OLED Switch, is the screen size, the bezel, the whatever, right? So if you're talking about increasing that, that's where I get excited that it won't use the old controllers, right? I don't care personally if they're on a rail or if they're magnetized, whatever. Like, I've never had a problem with it.
This is me, again, this is us working off of rumors / reports, right?
Grain of salt.
Like, I'm sure once we get to whenever they want to actually reveal it, they're going to explain exactly how it works and why you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, my main thing, I'm like, all right, but I don't want to like fucking, I don't know, manhandle it, and then my Switch is falling off my
No, there's got to be
Joy-Cons.
something you figure where, even though it won't be rails, I'd imagine you...
It's like snapping somehow.
You lock them in, and then there's got to be some kind of thing to toggle it or whatever, right, to make it go.
But I do like the rails. I guess that then leads me to, are we done with the snap? Because it was the snap.
No, because there's got.
rail.
I mean, that's a great point too.
Yeah.
There's got to be, when you lock them in, there's got to be something there.
I hope so.
I
I
don't want to let the snap go.
Yeah.
I want to keep the snap going.
God.
I have a lot of super chats here about the controllers and everything else. You ready?
Yep.
Prof and the Dev Play Games gave a super chat and said, kind of funny theme Joy-Cons, please, Andy. I would love that. Even though they kind of launched with that. Remember when they had the hot pink and the hot blue? And it was like close enough, you know what I mean?
Do you think we're gonna get to the place we talked about this? When I say we,
The design lab.
the royal we. Well, no, more so, just like ridiculous Joy-Con designs of like, oh, half of it is a fucking GameCube controller that you're sliding onto your Switch. Do we ever get the bespoke Joy-Cons?
No.
Yeah.
Not officially. You already have them right from third parties.
I guess we do. Yeah, you're right.
See, I was thinking for a kind of funny Joy-Con, Greg.
Yeah.
One Joy-Con, half of your face. The other Joy-Con, the other half of your face.
I'm in.
Disgusting.
You know what I mean?
So just the fucking analog stick is Greg's
My
nose.
nose. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, half of it. You know what I mean? Just half my nose, I guess, in each
Yuck.
side. Yeah. Some people would like that.
What else we got?
Tyler Wallace confirms that, yes, the Pro Controller has the best battery life. Demon Hacker says, put some damn Hall Effect stickers in the controller.
Let's say Hall Effect sticks. What is Hall Effect sticks?
I don't know what a Hall Effect stick is. Does anybody know? Let us know, chat. I don't know what that is. Thank you. Do that. Okay, here you go. Nine Scythe wants to argue with me about the paddles. If the next Switch has PS4/Xbox One capabilities, it would make sense to have pro level capabilities. It would make sense to answer that call if you needed it. I just don't think you want to come off of the success as the Switch has been so far. I don't think you launch Switch 2 and say, we're also putting out this Pro Controller with the paddles in the back and all this jazz. And people are like, to play Mario? I think you need to get the audience there that is playing, oh, I am playing Call of Duty. Oh, I am doing these things on this device that I would prefer that controller for.
That makes sense. I just want the excitement of the newness, right? Like I know
The new.
if it is Switch 1 to Switch 2, there are going to be some things that have the crossover, right? But like the thing I loved about Switch going from Wii U to Switch is that every single thing felt new. Every single thing felt like and we're doing this for the Switch. So you get the Pro controller and it's inherently Switch. You get like the Joy-Cons, it's inherently Switch. When we make this jump to Switch 2, I still want that. Like I think there's something special about that, and I think there's on the financial side, there's a lot to gain from that, right? Hey, we have a Pro controller that is specifically Switch 2. What does that look like? We'll see. But you're right, and I think that is, if you're going to do paddles, if you're going to do like the customization and all the shit that we get from the Xbox Elite controller, that is for a certain audience. That is, I think, more hardcore than what you're worrying
Here's
about.
Here's the thing
at
I think
launch.
you're thinking about in a different context, right? It's new for Switch, right? We're talking about Switch.
Mm-hmm.
How new do you want it for Switch 2? Mareg Giller, that's my name, but he moved the G and the M around. Gave a super chat and said, forget Nintendo controller updates, prioritize backwards compatibility.
I hope so.
Because that's the thing with this. If it's going to be the Switch 2, I still hope for the Super Nintendo Switch. Whatever, though. The hope has got to be that Switch 1 was such a success that we are finally saying the Switch is an ecosystem. All your old Switch games work here. All the things you bought on the Switch eShop are going to be here, and they're going to work, and you're going to have them. You have your library, and you're carrying your Nintendo account over. And that's what I'm looking for from Switch 2, I think. Is that I want this to feel like not a modern console in the way it's going to go compete with PlayStation 5, compete with Xbox, but in the way it's like we understand that we have had lightning in a bottle with Switch 1 and we don't want to make you restart all of that here.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like an old way of thinking that I know Nintendo is an old way of thinking, period, but that seems archaic at this point.
But like, what if they could sell all those games back to you? Like, what if they could use
I know.
whatever DLSS solution they probably have for the Switch 2 and go, hey, you want to play Tears of the Kingdom but hotter? Give us $60.
Yeah,
you want to play all
70.
of these Switch or $70,
I'll do
right?
70,
Like,
I'm sure.
look at all of these games released for Switch 1. You want to get them again? Cough up the money. They're gonna look better. They're gonna play better. But yeah, give us that money. I think that's the sucky way to do it, right? And I think that's the consumer unfriendly way to do it, and I would hate that. But I wouldn't put it past Nintendo. Like when we talk about the weird Nintendo decisions, that's like the number one on the list of, yeah, this is a very Nintendo thing to do. It's gonna upset a lot of people, but also,
But you can't
probably
do it
gonna
in
make them so much
2024,
money.
right? Chat.
you would think
Super
that from
chats. You can't do that in 2024,
from the
right?
things they've established with Switch Online, and yeah, the idea that this next thing is going to be in the Switch family, most likely, based on the reports, it's probably going to be backwards compatible. But I can't hope for it 100%. That's the crazy thing about Nintendo.
that I
is
agree with, that I agree
I
with.
can't hope for 100%.
This is one interesting one. Justin says put speakers in the Pro controller too.
Does the Pro controller not have a speaker?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I would like that.
Why?
I feel like Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo's like the ones. I think they're the ones that like started doing that, right? The Wiimote had speakers.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I liked it. I liked it mainly though because No More Heroes, you could like talk on the phone with the speaker. It was cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of like the speakers and the microphones and all that jazz. Like that is stuff where I'm like, this is why the controller costs more, and I don't want that stuff.
Mm.
It's back to like when Vita has a touchscreen and a back touch. I'm like, no, thank you. I just needed a PSP with another stick. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
You didn't have to give me all this shit. That's like you're chasing.
You know, like when you're playing Spider-Man 2 and you're doing flips and the flips come out of the controller.
There's nothing better than when I start on a new PlayStation, an office PlayStation, and this controller starts talking. I'm like, oh god,
Yeah.
Immediately
It's
jump
like-
in, turn that off. I'm like, this has been off for years with me. Why is it happening here?
It's always the thing where I'm always playing with my headphones on at home,
Yeah.
and then I come to work and I do something. And I'm like, I did not know that this was supposed to come out the controller.
Yeah,
It would always be like the
exactly.
most random sound effects that they choose
Yeah.
to come out the
Yeah.
controller.
Adam gave us a super chat and said adaptive triggers wouldn't work if the Joy-Cons were held sideways. Good point.
That's fair. But also, I mean, adaptive triggers are never a must on PlayStation. You can turn adaptive triggers off for any game. I mean, yeah. Like
But
Returnal,
it's
I
back
think
to the
you would have to change
conversation I think
setting.
we're just talking about of like what a Pro controller would look like for it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, are they going to turn them sideways? Well, I guess they're talking about snapping on magnetics. They probably are turning them sideways again.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah.
I got a couple more. I'll get you out of here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Owen Miss Prime gave a super chat and said, I love Nintendo, but I feel like collectively people just settle. Instead of wanting them to strive for more, they should have parity with Xbox and PlayStation.
I mean, to the part of parity with Xbox and PlayStation, I don't think you can do that and have it be this hybrid type console that is being handheld and doing all that stuff. And I think a lot of the
I
audience.
mean, not to mention, and I'm sorry, I cut
no,
you
go
off,
for
I'm
it.
sorry. But again, like, why would you want that as Nintendo? I understand what you're saying, Onimus. I remember being on IGN Game Scoops and talking about this kind of stuff and yada, yada, yada. And like, when we thought Nintendo was trending more to be a third party, right? But Nintendo went off. When everybody went right, they went left. And look at the success of the Switch.
Exactly.
Nintendo is not sitting there designing the Switch 2 and going, how are we going to keep up with PlayStation 5? They're like,
You
what
look
weird
at-
ass shit are we going to do to make people love this shit more?
People are buying Switches. People are buying Nintendo consoles to play Nintendo first-party games. And you look at the sales of Nintendo first-party games, and they're outselling
Yep.
PlayStation games by at least twice, right? Like, that is not a worry, especially when you're making these games for... Correct me if I'm wrong about the budgets. I have to assume the budgets are lower than what you're getting out of your premium PlayStation first-party stuff. They're developing these things for less of a budget and then making way more money off of them. I think, yeah, if you're going to try and be on parity with Xbox and PlayStation, you're fucking up that whole bag.
Yeah.
Right? Like right
Yep,
now,
yep.
you're making so much money by making games at this scale with this level of fidelity and doing all that stuff. I think you stay the course as a Nintendo.
James says for the Greg Switch controller, they should add speakers too, but the only sound they can make is his death cough.
Pretty good.
That was pretty good.
It's like you're breaking in Mario Kart and all you hear is the wheeze.
Alex G3B says more Nintendo consoles have been backwards compatible than not. Hopefully they learned from this with
That's
the
not
awful
true.
Wii U and 3DS shop, which it seems like it. Is that true?
No,
Yeah, what do you know?
that's definitely not true. Are
Nintendo,
you
Super
coming-
Nintendo, not to Nintendo. N64, not to Super
Yeah,
Nintendo.
GameCube,
not to N64.
Yeah, I think the only ones have been
Wii-
Wii was backwards compatible and Wii U was backwards compatible. Now Switch isn't backwards compatible.
And then the, I
Unless
guess,
you're counting handheld.
yeah, I was gonna say we're bringing in Game Boys then.
I guess Game Boys, changes that because
Yeah,
Game Boy Advanced was, and then I don't know if 3DS was the DS.
I believe you
Yeah,
can play DS
I think
games
it
on
was.
3DS, but I could be wrong.
Well, since it doesn't help our argument, Alex, fuck you.
But I will say, I mean, to their argument, whenever they're in the same family, usually they are backwards compatible. And so if the next thing is Switch 2, it's probably going to be backwards compatible.
Jeff Bull Jr. says, I wouldn't put it past them to sell HD games again in 2024, but don't they have relatively new leadership? Maybe things could change. We'll have to wait and see.